We've seen the highlight reels and mixtapes. We've read what the draft experts have to say. But what about hearing someone with their feet on the ground who has worked with Nique Clifford on a daily basis? On today's Locked On Kings podcast, very excited to be joined by head coach of the Colorado State Rams, Ali Farokhmanesh. He joins me to talk about Nique's journey to the NBA, how he improved and blossomed into an NBA first-round pick at Colorado State. It's all right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And one of the things I love about post-NBA draft is the opportunity to reach out and to talk to college coaches who are more than willing and more than excited to come on and whether it's podcasts or on television or radio and just hype up their guys, right? You're going to hear all over Sacramento sports radio, television, podcasts, whatever. You're going to hear a lot of different conversations with different college coaches of these Sacramento Kings draft picks and draft prospects that they acquired over the last couple of days. And I'm really excited because you get some real, genuine insight on who the player is on a daily basis, right? We're going to get to know Nique Clifford on a daily basis, right? We're going to be watching him closer as fans and as media members here in Sacramento than anybody else around the league, maybe other than diehard Colorado State fans, right? So we want to know what he's like on the daily, what he's like in the practice facility, what he's like every time he takes the floor. That's why I'm really excited to speak with Coach Farokhmanesh. He, a little context, was not the head coach at Colorado State while Nique Clifford was there. However, he was the associate head coach and one of the lead developmental coaches for Nique. So we worked very closely with Nique and helped him develop over his 2 years at Colorado State. And if you go and look at the numbers of his first 3 years at Colorado and then how he just exploded in his final 2 years of his college career, both at Colorado State, you'll see how big of an improvement he made. And to have one of his developmental coaches, one of the guys, and Coach Farokhmanesh is going to share with us specifically what they worked on and how he put his head down and embrace the things that Colorado State needed from him to turn into this fantastic player, an NBA caliber player. Coach provides a lot of really, really, really good and interesting context. So I'm excited for you to listen to this interview. I, of course, will have other interviews with other coaches. I'm working on getting Stanford's head coach and talking about the Kings' second round pick. And I'm still working on, I know I've Americanized the pronunciation of his very French name, Maxime Reynaud, I think is how you say it. I've been adding the D to it. The D is silent. I'm working on the pronunciation. Thank you to all of you in the comment section for making sure I say it right. Maxime Reynaud. I'm working on getting his head coach from Stanford here on Locked On Kings. Hopefully we'll be able to do that early next week. It's a pleasure to be joined by the head coach of the Colorado State men's basketball team, Coach Ali Farokhmanesh, joining me here to talk about the journey of Nique Clifford through Colorado State to the NBA and now the Sacramento Kings. And Coach, before we get to like specifically what the Kings are getting in Nique, I just would like to ask you, because you were the associate head coach and one of the lead developmental coaches for Nique in his time over the couple of years that he spent at Colorado State, but he arrived there 3 years in technically to his college career. What did you notice, I guess, when day one, when you got your hands on him, when he first walked onto the building to the final day, when he walked off campus and declared for the draft and now became a Sacramento King. What did you notice were the biggest differences in his game and just his overall growth as a basketball player?
Yeah, I mean, it's when Nique walks into the gym, he looks like an NBA player from day one. Like, and that's been the same since high school, because we recruited him out of high school as well. He just said no the first time around. But you could tell right away, like that's what NBA players look like. So right away he knew we had a chance, right? You have to have some level of athleticism, you have to have some level of length. It is what it is, right? But when he got to campus, I'll be honest, we didn't think he was going to start for us in year one. And then he put in a ton of work. His jump shot was not where it needed to be yet. His ability to play off 2 feet was not where it needed to be yet. So that was the two things that we wanted to work on right away, was getting the jump shot more fluid. His feet weren't strong. So we literally set out on an intentional work in terms of what two things we're going to work on that first year was his jump shot and his feet specifically, and then his one motion. That changed. He bought into it, and it changed his shot. He shot 38%, I believe, and made the double the amount of threes he made his entire career at that point from Colorado. Then the 2 feet, and I think that was one of the biggest things. He was strong and athletic, so at times he could just go up to the rim and jump over people and do crazy finishes, which is great, and it looks good on a highlight. But then when you go 1 for 6 on those, the highlight shows up, but the consistency and the percentages show different. And so we convinced him to, hey, we got to play off 2 feet more controlled when we get to the rim. And then also telling him, like, there's no more finesse finishing. Like, we're finishing through everybody. And I think that showed up. Last year it showed up. He had 28 dunks on the season, which I think he only had 10 previously the year before at Colorado. And then this past year, he had about 6 dunks on top of people. And so I think that mentality changed as well. So it was a developmental thing, but it's also a mentality change. And I think Kings fans will see he's got a tattoo of the Joker on his forearm. And we always talked about, like, he's the nicest person off the court, the most humble. I would let him watch my kids. You're going to love Nique in that sense. But the one thing holding him back was that he was not a killer on the court. So we built up this mantra as well of, like, you're the Joker once you step between those lines. And I still remember one of our video guys, Joe Deciman, we made a video together of him with Joker from the Batman movie, Joker quotes with him and highlights of him and whatnot, and made up this thing about mask on. And so now when you watch him walk out for the starting lineups, he always puts his mask on first. And that kind of changed his mentality. He transformed in the Joker. You can be this nice person, great human being off the court, but between those lines, like, there's only killers out there. And so you got to change into something else.
Well, he'll get along great with DeMar DeRozan, who also has a Joker tattoo, I believe, on his arm. So that's I'm sure they'll have plenty to talk about with that. But I've heard, like, a term that I've heard describe Nique is a sponge, right? And I think it sounds like you're kind of reiterating that with how much he retains information. But I mean, I think one of the pluses of being a super senior, having 5 years of college, is this. I mean, he comes into the NBA with a more NBA ready body, with a more NBA ready mindset, less of, I mean, not a 19, 20-year-old that needs to develop and grow into the NBA game, but someone who still needs to learn the NBA game, but can be more impactful right away. How quickly do you feel that he will be able to adapt to whatever the NBA game throws at him, and specifically whatever the Kings head coach Doug Christie want from him?
Yeah, I think that's 30. There's no entitlement when it comes to Nique. But the level of maturity when you get a 22, 23-year-old coming to the NBA that's been through some struggles too. Like, I think that's a big piece of it, is you're not getting an entitled kid that thinks he's this world beater. Like, he knows, like, this is another step. Like, making the NBA that's the dream, but, like, the goal is to stay in the NBA now. And so I think him understanding that as well, like, he's not coming in thinking he's a finished product either. He might be 23, but there's still so much room for growth. And that's what excites me with Nique, is, like, he's going to go in there, and, like, I'm going to text him today that he needs to get with DeMar DeRozan ASAP, because that's one of the hardest workers in the league. Like, there's documentaries about his work ethic. But he'll fit into that culture too, because that's the culture that we've built and tried to build over time at Colorado State, is that, man, the extra work is what separates you. And so the level, how you carry yourself in your workouts, how you you're always jogging, always talking, like you're showing up early, you're warmed up before your actual workout starts. You're already warmed up and doing your own workout so that when you work out with the coach, like it's go time. And I think that maturity level, that level of professionalism, that's going to carry over to the NBA. And I only think it's going to get better too, because now he's with other people that, not to say that we didn't have guys that thought that way. I'd say most of our team actually does think that way, which is special. But now you're working with 10 other guys, 15 other dudes that they have the same mentality that you have. And I think that's only going to help him grow that much faster too. Because just what you said, Matt, like he is a sponge. Like that is one of the most coachable kids I've ever been around. And to come into Colorado State and average 5 points a game at Colorado on a team that was 80th, 90th in the country, it wasn't like they were great when he left, to now we're telling you got to change your shot. We got to work on this. We got to do all these things to get you better. A lot of kids don't always buy into that either. They have their own idea of how they need to develop and whatnot. And you tell a kid that we're working on 2 things for the next spring and summer, and that's it. Like that's boring. But that's the only way I know you can truly grow is with that intentionality. And man, it worked out. It worked out to the fullest. I think that's the best. He's the best proof of that to me, is that our development program works, and how we go about our development is exactly the way I want to continue to do it. And that's why Nique is where he is because of that intentionality, but also what you said, being the sponge and bought into that work.
This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Skims. When I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued because I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, and I knew I had to give it a try. And let me tell you, it lives up to the hype, right? I've personally, and we're getting a little personal here, I've always had issues with underwear, whether it was fit, comfort, even finding the right style. Yes, style is important, of course, for underwear. Skims changed all that. Their men's line offers something for everybody, no matter what you're looking for, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. I really like the Stretch 5 boxer briefs. They're comfortable and they allow you to, or I should say they're versatile, right? We're talking about versatility a lot with Nique Clifford. The versatility of these boxer briefs are fantastic because whether I'm just sitting at my desk working, it's comfortable for that. And especially during the summertime, if I'm out being active, chasing my kid around the park, going out for a round of golf, they're comfortable and keep me cool and everything during the summertime months too, which of course is very important. Guys, you know what I'm talking about. Shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com and then make sure you let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select Locked On Kings in the drop-down menu that follows. I don't even think Nique realizes how significant of a pick that he is. One, because the Kings traded up into the first round to go and get him. And I asked him about that on draft night. Looking forward to chatting with him more about that. But he was the first player personnel move of new Kings general manager Scott Perry. So there's an extra level of special to that Scott wanted to put his first stamp on this era of Sacramento Kings basketball by going and bringing Nique in terms of, I should say, and one of the things that Scott Perry's talked a lot about and immediately pointed out with Nique in his press conference was versatility and a two-way player, right? Someone that's going to give you something on both ends that can do more than one thing, is more than one-dimensional. When you hear those two terms and yourself apply those terms to Nique, do you agree with that assessment of Scott Perry? And how important do you think those two traits are to Nique's game and Nique's development going forward?
Absolutely. I think that the cool thing with Nique too is there's not a lot of players in the NBA that get drafted in the first round that have to go through the things he went through as a player. I mean, this is a kid that never played a minute his freshman year, basically at Colorado, sparingly his sophomore year, becomes kind of an off and on starter his junior year there, then comes here. Now he's Robin in his first year here with Isaiah Stevens. And then next year he's the guy. So he's played every role that you can play in college in basketball. And I think that's when you're going to the NBA, you want people that can be able to handle those different roles because it's going to fluctuate game to game, season to season, month to month. And I think that's what makes him special is he can be able to handle those different roles, whatever is asked of him. And he doesn't have the entitlement to not say, well, I'm better than that role. Like, what role does Doug Christie want him to play? Like, I'm going to go dominate that role then. I think that's what makes him special in terms of why he's going to have success in the league is that entitlement is not there. But then the versatility, I mean, it really was incredible watching him sometimes this year in terms of, I mean, I remember some games we'd look up like, man, he did not play well. And you look up, you're like, dang, 24, 10, and 7. Well, I guess he played okay then. And so I think that's what's hard with him is like he does so many things so well consistently over in the course of a game that sometimes you don't even notice it because it just becomes he's just making the right play over and over again. It's not always these loud moments of just dunks on people or 3 threes back to back to back. It's just, man, 3 here, block shot there, rebound there, like quick outlet to the next guy, like rebound, make the right decision on an offensive rebound. It's not always these loud plays, but then you look at the stat sheet, you look at his plus and minus, he just affects the game in so many different ways that it's a coach's dream, to be honest. And sometimes you look at the stat sheet after the game and you're like, wow, like 24, 7, and 7, like that's different. So the versatility piece, that's absolutely key. And I think Scott Perry's spot on with that. He affects the games in more ways than just one.
What about positional versatility, though? And I know basketball is going to more of positionless basketball and being able to do a lot of things, which, I mean, definition of versatility, but his ability to at times run the offense, handle the basketball, take over those responsibilities. The Kings are in kind of a transitional period with their point guard position. I know it sounds like Nique more of a 2-3 in terms of the size and measurements in the game, but just his ability, whether it's in spot minutes or specific lineups, to control and to handle the basketball. Is he comfortable in that position as well as, of course, playing off the ball?
Yeah, I think that's what makes him special too, is that exactly what you said. I think it's funny to me because like the year before when he went through the process a little bit, before he gets to Colorado State, right? He's only looked as a defensive guy basically because he's not shooting the ball well. His turnovers are high. So then that next year he's looked at as a 3-and-D guy now. So now he's added a 3-ball plus D after 1 year with us. Then he comes back for the following season, and now I have people calling me saying like, well, he's like kind of like a secondary point guard in some ways. So you think about that transition in 20 months from a guy that is strictly a defensive guy to all of a sudden he's a 3-and-D guy to all of a sudden now he's a secondary point guard type. And I think that's what's special about him is that he can play the point, he can make plays for others. He enjoys that more than anything else. I think that's where he finds joy. He doesn't, not just the scoring, like he wants to make plays for other people. And he's always viewed himself like that. Even out of high school, to be honest, we recruited him as a point guard. So for him to finally see the fruits of that labor, and now people are talking about him being a secondary point guard type that also can guard and rebound. There's not a lot of guys like that. And I think that's what makes him unique.
The defense is very exciting too. Coach, I don't know how familiar you are with Sacramento Kings basketball, but over the years, the defense has been one of the inconsistencies of this organization, especially on the perimeter. So how would you assess, I mean, you just talked about it, Colorado, he was basically known as a defensive guy, but somebody who has the intangibles and the willingness on the defensive end to do the dirty work and to do the hard things to be able to lock down that perimeter defensively.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to him playing so many different roles over his college careers. There's no role that's too big for him. He does not have a level of entitlement that some people have when they come into the league and say, well, I did this in college or I did that in high school. Well, this ain't college. This ain't high school anymore. This is a different level now. So for him, he understands that. And he's the type of player that like he's not going to look back on his career and be like, well, I was doing this at Colorado State. Well, you're not at Colorado State anymore. You're the Sacramento King now. So whatever they need you to do in that moment or that season, go be the best in that position. And then whenever you do that and you're a star in your role, you get more opportunities to do other things. And I think that's been instilled in our program. And I think that's why guys have had success going on and going forward is he's going to have that same mentality that he had here is be a star in your role, and then you get a bigger role.
Like I said at the top of the show, this episode of Locked On Kings is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the very last minute to head to a ball game with friends and family? I know I do it a lot. Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize I want to be in the stands, or maybe you thought, oh, it'd be fun to go to a game, but we don't know, like schedules get tight. Are we going to be free? Are we not? Oh, we're free. All right, let's try and get tickets. That's exactly where Game Time comes in clutch. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. When the money, or rather with the money that you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Look, as you very well know, entertainment life it's getting more and more and more expensive. I know a lot of families sometimes struggle to be able to get enough tickets to take their family out to the ball game. It ends up becoming a very, very expensive trip. Game Time will save you more money than you will find anywhere else. They have their Game Time guarantee that ensures that. It makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop significantly the closer you get to first pitch. So maybe it's a 1 o'clock first pitch and you still don't have tickets at 11 a.m. You're going to find a great deal. Trust me on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Couple more for you, Coach. The NBA draft process is so strange in terms of you have NBA draft experts and talking heads like myself labeling these kids, putting player comps on these kids to try and make it as understandable as possible for the general NBA audience. But there's always things that slip through the cracks or things that we miss because we're not on the court with them or with them every single day. What is it? Is there anything specific, whether it's about Nique as a basketball player, Nique as a person, that you think shines through or is very important that maybe wasn't picked up in the draft process, you didn't hear talked about enough, you didn't hear, attached to Nique as a basketball player through this process?
Yeah, because I think it's pretty well known now that the development piece for him, like seeing his progress, I think that's pretty – everyone kind of talks about that. Like you can go watch film at Colorado and be like, that looks like a completely different human being. But I think that's pretty well documented at this point. I think the one thing, and I told scouts this during the process, that I think what makes him special is that, so it was his first year here, right? He had just left Colorado. One of his best friends, two of his best friends, Jabari Walker, Tristan Da Silva, right, from Colorado, they're now in the NBA. So Tristan Da Silva has senior night. We're off. We're not playing. I think we had 2 or 3 days off. Now, Colorado State and Colorado do not like each other. So this kid transfers from Colorado to Colorado State. Like, that's not going to be a warm welcome when you go to Colorado again. So he goes back. We have an off night. He goes back for senior night for Tristan Da Silva at Colorado and is in the crowd for his senior night. I don't know too many players that would do that, not only because you're going back to Colorado, hostile environment. You don't know how you're going to receive. We had just beat them at home that year too. So like there's a little animosity as well. And he had a good game too. But he goes back because that's the type of teammate he is. And I think that's what people don't – you're not going to know that unless you're with him every day. The type of teammate that he is, that's different. And I don't think there's not a lot of guys that are like that. Like he does not care what happens in the game as long as it's a win. That's the only thing that matters to him. And I think that's what separates him is those little things that people don't see on the basketball court, the type of person he is, the type of teammate that he is. That's what makes him special. And I think that's what Kings fans and that community is going to see when he gets there, is that he's going to be embraced by the community because of who he is.
Well, finally, Coach, you're starting your era of Colorado State basketball as the top man. And of course, congratulations to you on that. And I know you're going to be locked into that and trying to make sure Colorado State hoops are in the best place possible. But how much will you be paying attention? How much will Colorado State be paying attention to Nique's career? Can we count on some new Kings fans in Colorado State? I know it's the green compared to the purple, but can we count on some Kings fans coming from Colorado State paying attention to Nique?
100%. I played at Northern Iowa, so I can get back in the purple pretty easily here. That's an easy one. Obviously, I was back in the day with Mike Bibby and them. Like that was one of my favorite teams growing up. So it's easy for me to throw on a Kings jersey. I'm just waiting for whatever number he picks. But I guarantee you go to Colorado Springs next year and you're in Fort Collins, you're going to see a lot of purple jerseys walking around those arenas. So that's going to be easy for Rams fans, for Colorado fans, for people from Colorado. Might hurt the Nuggets fan base for a little bit, but we'll work with it.
Shout out to Coach Farokhmanesh for taking the time here. He's appeared on a lot of different Sacramento Kings related shows and content over the last 24 to 48 hours. Very generous with his time, provided, I thought, a lot of really interesting context. We learned a lot about who Nique is and the work that he's willing to put in. And that's important for the 24th pick in the draft, right? He's going to come in and he's going to have to earn his spot in the rotation. But as we heard from Coach there, he's more than willing to embrace the little things, even if it's just one or two things that he has to hyper focus on. He will do it, and he's shown the improvement from when he sets his mind to something, that gets me excited for what he can do when Doug Christie and his coaching staff get his hands on Nique and are able to mold him and start to work with him here in Summer League and training camp. Speaking of Summer League, the Kings Las Vegas Summer League schedule is out. Yes, I know they're still not in the Cali Classic, which is depressing, but there are 4 guaranteed Summer League games in Las Vegas. Are on July 10th, they'll take on the Orlando Magic. On July 12th, they'll take on the Chicago Bulls. On July 14th, they'll take on the Phoenix Suns. And on July 16th, they'll take on the Cavaliers. And then and then they'll have, of course, the playoff games and everything beyond that. So looking forward to Las Vegas Summer League. I don't know if I'm going to be going or not. Regardless, I'm going to be locked in, very interested in seeing what these new Kings players, these rookies look like. It's nice to be excited about something again with the Kings. Of course, we got so much more coming. Like I said, other conversations that I'm trying to get with some of these prospects coaches. Trying to get another draft analyst here on Locked On Kings to break down the Kings draft as a whole. Scott Perry is getting a lot of glowing reviews around the NBA draft expert circles right now, which is really, really cool. And then, of course, more on like the Malik Monk trade situation, Dennis Schroeder. I talked a lot about that on yesterday's Locked On Kings podcast, if you missed that. And free agency is right around the corner. So there is a lot going on here in Kingsland, and business is just getting started. So I appreciate you staying locked into the Sacramento Kings here on the Locked On Kings podcast. My name is Matt George. You've been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.